don't think we have any criteria of success in Summerhill at all. I don't think it would go with Summerhill if we did have. We like children to lose their fear of adults, not to be afraid ever of admitting that they're in the wrong or that they have done wrong. We like to feel that they are confident young people and emotionally mature when they leave us.
Summerhill School was started in England 45 years ago. From the beginning, its radical approach to education raised storms of controversy. Yet today, some educators in Canada are saying we have much to learn from the Summerhill experiment. And 2 schools modeled on Summerhill have now been established in Canada. Critics of the school say its principles are an invitation to unbridled chaos. It hardly deserves the name of school at all. This film is a candid look at the much-debated Summerhill. It is about the children who come to it, many of them from abroad, and about the man whose ideas started it all.
You go and find Neill. He's a great big man, you know, with white hair, you see. And
what about you?
He's an awful nice-looking chap.
Yeah. Neill, you know there's lines that they sort of at the top
of the roof.
Yeah.
On the edge of the roof where the
round
gutter
it, and they're
is.
black.
Alexander Sutherland Neill is now 83 years old and still going strong.
Ted, what did it used to be before you came here?
Oh, this was a gentleman's house. A gentleman once lived here.
Christ.
The servants and the dining room was a billiard room where they had a big billiard table and people played billiards, you see.
Oh, billiard room, I know.
And they dressed up for dinner at night and had evening dress on, you know.
It would be fun if
how horrible.
everybody dressed up for one night, you know, in evening dress.
Yes,
and
very good idea.
Strode down,
Very
you
good
know, and we
idea.
had big velvet carpets all the way down the camp.
I'm not very sure what education means. I only know what it doesn't mean. And it doesn't mean mathematics and history and geography and things like that. I object to education in the schools because it begins at the neck and goes upwards. It doesn't touch the rest of the body. It doesn't touch the emotions. So that you get people coming out of school with any amount of book learning, which is no good to them, and their emotions are all wrong. That's my chief objection to the ordinary schools. I'd like to abolish the whole lot, but I don't think I'll manage it. I'd like to make every school like Summerhill, where everybody could be free to learn if they wanted to learn, or play when they wanted to play, and make their own rules about living. That's what I'd like to see, but the majority of people don't want that. Most people are conditioned when they're cradles, and they're conditioned all the way up. And they're never really free to be themselves. They've been told they're bad or they're lazy or whatever it is, and they try to live up to it. I wanted to found a school where emotions would be the chief thing, that if the emotions are free, the intellect looks after itself. You notice that our meetings, our weekly self-government meetings, that the word lessons is never mentioned. They're not important. It's living that's important. And if people are free to live without being molded in character by teachers or parents, they have a chance to become balanced, sincere people. It's the sort of thing you have to see to believe, really, to see how children who come to Summerhill hating everybody and hating life in a year or two become people who love life and fit into life in a friendly way instead of a hateful way.
A lot of them arrive rigid and unfriendly and cautious, and the first sign of anything happening to them is when they turn round and start being cheeky to you. You speak to them and they answer you back, or if you say something they call you names, like they call Ollie and me fat old sow and things like that. And then you know that they're beginning to tick over.
She treats everybody like we're about 3.
Look, that has nothing to do with
does business. That always.
What the hell does she think she is?
It's the chairman's privilege to find somebody if they don't shut up. And it's the chairman's privilege if she wants to close a business, she can. So I don't see what you're complaining about.
It is not the chairman's privilege to ignore a proposal, is it?
It is.
Josh.
Yeah, but some of Mitch's proposals are utterly asinine.
Well, that doesn't make any difference with Mark.
Yes, everything that anybody says is worth listening to, and any proposal is worth taking. No matter who says it or how stupid you may think it is.
Mark.
Well, I agree that everybody's business is important, but it isn't fair for one person to practically monopolize the meeting. You've got a lot of people sitting here.
Mark.
He had a proposal. He proposed that the chairman was changed. Yeah. Take it.
All in favor that I am no longer chairman after this meeting? All in favor? Against? Okay, I'm chairman.
Once a year, usually kids say, let's have no bedtimes, just to show their strength. And this goes on for maybe a week or 2 weeks until everyone is walking around dead tired and sick and ill and everything else. And then they say, look, let's go back to 10, 15 bedtimes. And we do. Because it's been proved, all the new kids say, hey, we really can do it. And that's it for the next year.
I have no veto in meetings. I don't think I've ever actually prohibited anything. I've prohibited people bringing alcohol into school. But otherwise, we leave them to find out for themselves what is the correct thing to do.
Tell me, if you're accused of doing something in the meeting, do you admit it if you've done it?
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't want to get caught. I don't want to get caught.
Are you afraid?
Of what?
Of admitting it?
Well, no, but it's better not to admit it because it doesn't really matter if you lie here. And I don't lie very much outside. If you say I haven't done it, it doesn't pin it on anybody else. It just means it just doesn't get blamed on you.
Yeah, but isn't it unfair to, not to own up, really?
Well, can be, but I'm just unfair.
Why?
I don't know. I just don't tell.
Were you unfair before you came here in your other schools?
Well, I never did anything because I couldn't.
You mean you were the sort of goody-goody in your other schools?
Well, I wasn't goody-goody. It's just that, you couldn't be very batty-batty because there's always this Mrs. Harper looking at you. She's this woman who's always raising her eyebrows, and she has veins. Her eyeball is also veiny, and she just stares at you.
Yeah, go on.
Well, I don't know, and she used to keep a watchful eye over us, and we couldn't do anything bad.
I see. So really, you've taken the opportunity now you've got here?
No, I don't do too much bad here. The bad things I usually do are the things I think are unreasonable. I admit doing most things bad, but there's some things which I just break simply because I'm bored. I don't admit to those.
Why'd you get bored?
There's nothing to do.
A lot of children, when they first come here, are deadly bored because they have been used to being told what to do, how to amuse themselves. But here we don't do that kind of thing. We just leave them to find their own amusement and find their own way about. And they hang around and say, what shall I do, what shall I do? But as time goes on, they wander maybe into the art room or over to the workshop and start on the creative things. And they maybe write a play or write a story for the wall newspaper. And they learn how to amuse themselves after a time.
It doesn't matter what they do so long as they're doing something creative. The pens, a lot of them paint, some of them act, some of them do metal work, woodwork, pottery, basket work and things.
Now, I made a too small, so it was much too small.
I like to see it because they're happy when they're creative. And the criterion really is happiness, which is very difficult to define. You can't be happy when you've got toothache, but still, happiness is just a feeling of balance, of well-being, I think.
Necessarily, people right. I mean, I did plenty of proofs on this thing, but now
At one time, I had nothing else but problems, and practically all problems when I began, because I couldn't get anybody else. And I spent years analyzing children, thieves and liars and destroyers. And after 2 years, a boy expelled from a public school would go out cured. And I thought psychology is wonderful. And then it slowly came to me that Jimmy and Lizzie, who'd also been chucked out of school for stealing, wouldn't come near me for an analysis. And they went out cured, so I decided it wasn't analysis I was doing, it was freedom. Freedom is the answer, letting people be natural and live their own lives without being indoctrinated and being disciplined and all the rest of it.
That's not what we're doing here. No, not at all.
We can't make them do a thing if they don't want to do it. And if a child wants to go to an art school and hates maths and English and languages, we explain the situation and say that art schools don't take you without a certain number of academic subjects having been passed. And, well, we leave it to the child. You can only put the situation in front of them and let them work it out for themselves.
I think about the future a lot.
Well, I think about it, but I don't like to think about it. I find everyone's always asking me what I'm going to do, when I leave Summerhill. And, and I usually say, I don't know, and they're very shocked by this. They look at you as if you're, a madman.
I want to find something I like to do that I can do without going to college. And
Yeah, we don't have to know a lot to do.
I think everybody goes through a phase like that anyway, though, don't they? I mean, everybody in the whole world goes through a phase where they think, why is everybody pressing me? I don't want to do anything. I don't know what I want to do.
Usually if you do go to a regular school, you're pushed through the school, then the school pushes you on to a college, and your parents push you on to it, and then you're pushed and your parents push you on to a job, and this is what happens in a large public school.
But here you have to make your own, no one else is going to do it.
No one else is going to push you along and tell you to do anything. You have to do it yourself. You have your own sense of responsibility. And this is something that you need to learn, I think.
What do you think you do get out of being at Summerhill that you don't get from an ordinary school?
I just know that I'm here, and I know I'm happy here, a lot happier than I was in America, and I know I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. I don't know.
But do you think it's doing you any good, the fact that you're happy?
Yes, I think it is. It's made me not as afraid of things as I used to be. I used to be really terrified of absolutely everything. I was just all sort of nervous and tensed up and everything.
What kind of things were you afraid of before?
I know, I was afraid of everything.
People?
Yes, and of the dark, and of, I don't know, just everything. It was very strange.
Do you think you've changed since you've come to Summerhill? Are you happier?
Well, yes, because my old school was misery. Most schools are.
Was that why you came here? Did you ask to come here? Did your parents come?
Well, I didn't want to come here because I didn't know what it was like. I just thought it was... Then my mom said you didn't have to go to classes. So I thought about what heavenly bliss.
That's one thing that makes me feel sorry, because at public school you have to go whether you like it or not, and you learn it. But here you don't have to, and if you don't have to, if you know you don't have to, you almost, tend to want a chance that you don't.
Do you yourself go to lessons?
Yes, well, not some of them, yes.
Do you think free choice of lessons, on the whole, do people stay away because they don't have to go?
Well, it goes in age groups. The younger kids go because there's just sort of play lessons, activities, painting and things.
Yeah, well, yes, that's Norway. Will you tell me how to spell hippopotamus, please?
There's a dictionary over there. I took it out.
Where is it? There's lots of names, and then inside there's countries, and then inside that...
From about 10 to 14, kids don't seem to go very much at all. That seems to be when they sort of don't like it. But after that, from 14 onwards, they do seem to go, and maybe they start worrying about what they're going to do when they leave. I don't know, but they do. There probably aren't such good facilities for learning here. I mean, up to a certain level there are, but you can always go somewhere else afterwards.
Seriously studying writing, possible use for grammar. Okay.
Well, I mean, and there's a use now anyway, because I mean, if you want to do anything and do GCs, you have to learn it.
Well, we're back to the examination question again, aren't we? But there's the English examination itself, which some of you at least, are going to take probably next year, aren't you?
Studying is harder here because, I mean, when you're going to a regular school, you just go for a certain period of hours in the daytime, and you just know that you're doing work all the time. But if you have to study here, you know, you just have to try not to let anything else distract you, and you don't have any special time. It's just completely up to you to do it, and you're always afraid of sort of missing something else. And if you really do want to study, you can. It's just takes self-control, that's all.
What about criticisms of something? Have you got any? Do you think there are things that could be better or should be different?
I think it'd be better if there was a few more kids. And sort of, I mean, it'd be good to have science teaching, which we don't have, and things like that. But basically,
I mean, you don't
I
have
agree
any
with
science
it.
teaching at all?
There's biology, but there's nothing else. And they had a laboratory with a lot of equipment, but they just never got a good teacher. So it was never used. Well, I think it's hard to get science teachers anywhere, but I mean, it's very hard to get teachers here because as well as being good in the subject, they have to be special people that will fit in here. I mean, they can't just be sort of any teachers.
Do you know any other kids of your own age outside Summerhill? You'd meet them in the holidays?
When I was in Wales last holidays, I met some teenagers and I got along with them, but I just didn't enjoy their company at all because, well, for one thing, all they talked about was sex the whole time, and they just kept making sex jokes that weren't funny. And if I ever tried to talk about anything the least bit serious, you know, they sort of look at me as though I was quite mad. It seems like outside of Summerhill, they're much more false, and there's always this sort of flirtation. And they're always trying to impress each other, sort of. And I think here you get sort of a much more sort of normal, just, you know, being able to just sort of be with boys in a normal type way.
There's not as much sex here as there is in the school
Any
I
other
last
school.
went to. All the parties, they just practically sit around kissing all the time. And here,
There should be more here. There should be a lot more here.
But there isn't.
Why?
That goes with groups. I mean, sometimes there's a lot, and sometimes
That's
there
ages
isn't.
and groups.
Depends on who's here, you know.
Why do you think there should be more?
Because I think it's healthy, and if you can, I think it's usually a good thing to have. For instance, in the school I went to last year, there was a lot of it, but it was ugly and it was seamy, and a lot of other things were attached to it. Like what? Social things. You're fitting into the social. There was a sort of ugliness that was often hard to put your finger on.
I don't really know, but I think if there is a reason why, you know, kids don't go around so much, is because in an ordinary school you just do it for show, and if you did it here you would really mean it. And so I expect, you know.
We approve of sex. A few years ago we got a boy from a public school. A boy of 15 who fell in love with a girl of 15, a new girl. And they came to me one day and said, Neill, we'd like a bedroom to ourselves. And I said, well, I'd very gladly give you one, but I daren't. Why not? This is a free school. I said, yes, but it's not a free civilization. Supposing I did give you a bedroom to yourselves and the Ministry of Education heard about it, it'd shut my school as a model school. And that's the only attitude I've ever taken. It's not a moral attitude, it's purely a social attitude. And I know headmasters of co-education schools who can't sleep at night because they're wondering what the boys and girls are doing, because they take a moral attitude. Say this is sinful or this is wrong and so on. That's the only attitude we ever take. begin really by giving as much freedom as you can, by letting the child decide its own life as much as possible. But you've got to help little children, protect them from their ignorance of things. You can't ask a child of 2 if it's going to put on a coat going out in the cold. No, and there are lots of things you have to do for them when they're young that they can't do for themselves. And that's why it's so difficult to have self-government in the school if you don't know young children. We know that because we began with young children, and it was very difficult to make laws when they weren't ready to make laws. But they gradually, in our self-government meetings, they gradually begin to learn what social control is and community living is.
All in favor that little Kevin's given a strong warning not to go outside again without shoes on.
The meeting doesn't mean much to them when they're 6, but gradually they begin to understand what it's all about.
That's Carrie. Okay, Kevin, do not go outside without your shoes on.
Well, that means that I can't get out of bed if I don't have any shoes.
Outside.
So I missed my breakfast. It's about 4 o'clock.
Okay.
When a new child is charged, it probably feels a sense of injustice because most children come here with the idea that this is a free school, that the parents impress upon children it's a free school where they can do as they like, which of course is not true because they are bound in by the laws of the community. And if they transgress them, they are charged by their peers.
May I ask what the object is of throwing bricks? I mean, what's the point in doing it? Kevin, what is the point of throwing bricks, stones, etc. last night at work? Okay, well, I mean...
You said that there's no point in throwing stones at some definite object in the hockey field. What's the point of throwing them in any place?
Kevin, sit down.
It's no fun doing it like that. Why is it fun doing it in any way? What's the pleasure you get out of it? Why do you do it?
I don't think that's terribly important, but I'll explain it since you asked. And I say it's like throwing a cricket ball or baseball. Something in particular. There's no enjoyment we get out of throwing something. At any rate, I'd like to remind you that I'm exempt from all of your laws.
Chrissy, you're taking advantage of this, Mark. You think you can do anything you want. And I bloody well propose that the only thing he doesn't have to do is go to bed.
Are there any proposals? Okay, well, I'll take the 3 there are.
One is that if they do it again, they're fined 6 pence. And one is that they can throw stones behind the carriages.
All in favor that they are fined 6 pence. All in favor that they can only throw stones behind the carriages. And nowhere else. Well, that's carried. Anything else on the agenda?
Margie and Becky versus Alan, Ted, and Fritz for general annoyance.
Margie.
They locked us in our room, and they wouldn't let us out, and they started flicking us in the face with towels, and they wouldn't go when we asked them to. They could tell we were hell of annoyed at them.
Wait a minute, who are the ones? Alan, Fritz, and who?
Ted.
Alan, do you have anything to say about annoying Margie?
Yes, I think it's stupid and she's always annoying us as well.
I know, I do annoy you, but I never really hurt you, and I don't carry it to extremes, Alan.
Ina.
Margie, just think how dull your life would be if you didn't have these boys to annoy. What would you do?
Chrissy.
I walked in their room, and suddenly you get viciously attacked by a whole fleet of wet towels.
Well,
Neill.
I don't think the meeting has any right to interfere with a love affair. Summerhill pupils only go as far as their character and ability will take them. If they're not fit to be anything else than a dustman, The bead dustbin, we haven't produced any dustbins so far. We've produced quite a lot of learned people in the way of universities, professors and lecturers. And we don't think that's very, very important because any school could produce university lecturers. I quite admit that you have to earn a living. And I quite admit that certain examinations are necessary. I don't want the man who wheels me into the hospital to cut out my appendix. You must have training of some kind. But all the training in schools and for examinations is mostly throwing the baby out of the bath, so to speak. It has no utility. You forget it all when you leave school. And it doesn't help you in one way of living at all. The emotions are completely or nearly completely suppressed. And that's one of the great dangers, for example, of war, because rationally people say, well, we won't have war because it'll kill everybody, but irrationally the emotions take part, and then they make wars and call it nationalism or freedom or whatever it is. It's appalling thought to me that all of my children's lives are in the hands of life-haters, some politician who can press a button and start a world war. The establishment, which is 99% of the people, believes that education is learning, believes that children should be disciplined, believes that the child is born bad and must be elevated. It takes generations for anything new to sink in, because the people move so slowly. I vary between pessimism and optimism. I'm optimistic about children, but I'm pessimistic about adults, really.